Welcome back to the Author Entrepreneur Collective, the show where we bring powerful conversations with authors and entrepreneurs who are not only sharing their stories, but building impact, influence, and income around their message. I'm your host, Stacy Matson, author of Bucket List Living, Living Your Purpose, and owner of Bucket List Unlimited. Today's episode is one of faith, resilience, and unshakable trust. I'm joined by Donna Strong, author of Trust, Total Reliance Under Stressful Times. Donna's story is raw, real, and deeply moving. From a strong Christian upbringing to walking through unimaginable trials, including betrayal, false accusations against her family, and seasons that could have easily shaken her faith, Donna faced a defining question. Do I trust God or do I walk away? Instead of turning away, she leaned in. Her journey is a powerful reminder that trust isn't built in comfort, it's forged in the fire of life's hardest moments. And through it all, she's discovered that even when life doesn't make sense, God is still faithful. Donna is also the founder of Thoughts and Expressions, LLC, where she's now helping others bring their own stories to life through publishing support and services. This is a conversation about faith under pressure, healing from hurt, and what it really means to trust God when everything else around you feels uncertain. Let's dive in. Donna, your book is such a powerful acronym, TRUST, Total Reliance Under Stressful Times. What was the moment you knew this message needed to become a book?
Well, it was actually in October 2016, and my sister and I sang gospel music and traveled all over the country sharing through song. And so we were in Branson, Missouri for an annual event, and we were in a circle for our morning worship time. And I was just worshiping with my hands closed, and I saw this book in my mind's eye, and it said Trust, Total Reliance Under Stressful Times. And I thought, wow, I really love that acronym. I'm a patterned person. So the interesting thing is I'm not a book reader. I mean, does God have a sense of humor or what? Because I don't retain what I read. I have to go back to where I left off and reread and think, oh, yeah, I kind of remember what I'm reading. It just doesn't stick with me. But acronyms and short stories and things like that really do well with me. So God knew that. And so he gave me that acronym. And so after the service, my sister and I went to lunch and I was telling her about it and she thought it was pretty cool. And then I just said, I don't know why I saw it as a book though. And immediately, before I could even get the full sentence out, she said, well, maybe you're supposed to write a book. Now you know how sisters are. They're always trying to tell you something. And I'm like, no. I said, I don't even read. I wouldn't know how to begin a book. And she's like, yeah, but you write really well. And I'm like, yeah, I can write press releases for the group and I can write emails, but a book? No, no. So the following month, we were in North Carolina and we had some concerts there and we met some friends for dinner. And our friend had been writing a book about a missions trip, which we knew, and he handed each of us a book across the table. And we were like, oh, you got it finished. And he said, yeah. He said, I never thought I'd write a book, but his wife had kept prodding him to do so. She said she really thought he should. Well, my sister was sitting to my right, and I get this big elbow with her loved elbow. And he looks and said, what's that about? And so I related the story from Branson, and he agreed with my sister, of course, that I should write a book. But I put it on the back shelf because we were traveling. I just didn't have the time. And yet there was something back there that just kept telling me I needed to write it. And I knew that the bulk of the book would be about my son's health because I have a 31-year-old son who at age 9 was diagnosed with epilepsy. So I knew that that would be the focus of the book, but it couldn't just be about that. So I just kept praying and we announced a year before coming off the road. We announced in June 2021 that we would be coming off the road in May of 2022. The Lord had just laid it on our hearts that 2022, which was our 40th year in gospel music ministry, would be it. He spoke to me and said, you've done what I asked you to do. We were just getting back after 2020's debacle, and neither of us really were looking to come off the road. We had planned to slow things down a bit after their 40th big anniversary celebration, but stopping was not in our plans. But yet, that's what God told us. And when I told my sister what I felt, she said, I started feeling that about 2 weeks ago. So he just confirmed. And so during that year, after we announced it'd be our final year, people would say to us, so what are you guys going to do when you stop traveling? And my sister would say how she was VBS director and how she scheduled the volunteer teams at church. And it would just be easier for her to do that being at home. And they'd look at me and I'd say, I don't know. God hasn't told me yet. And my sister would say, oh, yes, he has. She's going to write a book. so So then I still didn't know how to put it together. And I'm like, okay, I kind of know what the book's going to be about. And I know the title and because I saw the cover page but how do I do this? And so we were in Florida in March 2022 and we had a day off. So we were at the beach just soaking in some sun. And I hear section one, my journey. Talk about how you grew up until you got married. Section two, our journey. Talk about from your wedding all the way through your family and the dealings with the epilepsy. And section three, his journey. Talk about Christ and how he came to earth and went through and still trusted God and then give the salvation message. And I went, oh, I guess I know how to write the book now. And so I told my sister, and she said, well, cool. So I was still waited a couple years because I was doing some other stuff and just kind of enjoying time off the road. But near the end of 2024, I really, really felt God saying, you need to write the book. So I had another position with a company and I came away from that and started writing the book March 1st, 2025. And April the 24th, 2025, my manuscript was done.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
I was just blown away. 2 days later, our mom passed away. So she got to know that I finished the book.
That's
So
amazing.
God's timing is always perfect. We don't always understand it, but if we just flow in that, it'll be what it needs to be.
Exactly. You share a lot of personal and painful experiences in your story. What gave you the
Yes.
courage to be so open and vulnerable?
Well, I grew up with parents who were very much of the belief that if you needed prayer, people needed to know that you needed prayer. And just saying, well, I need prayer, then people start speculating and, oh, what if it's this? What if it's that? Especially these days. And so I've always been kind of open with what it is that I'm requesting prayer for, even on Facebook. If you go to my Facebook page and, I'm going through health issues, I will tell what I'm dealing with, and this is what I need prayer for, and I need accuracy in diagnosis or whatever it may be. And I know some people are a little more private than that, but I've always believed that we need to express what it is that we need to God and to our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. So it isn't always easy, but I was taught that trusting comes in a way from being open and vulnerable, if that makes sense. Because if we're so private and so into us, sometimes we can't allow the Lord to truly work in us like he needs to work.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially since with at least my experience that you need to be specific when you ask God for something because otherwise sometimes
Hmm.
it doesn't work out the way you want to, right? So, yeah,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And he knows what we need before we ask, but he says, ask. And it talks about sometimes we pray amiss. So I think we do need to be specific. And if we don't know what it is, then that's when, the Holy Spirit can intercede for us. But if we know what it is, I believe in being very specific about it.
agreed. If readers take away one core message from your book, what do you hope it is?
Don't give up, keep trusting. Life will happen. And, to say that we have a Christian life and things are going to be all perfect for us is hugely wrong. When I look at my life, even through the church hurt that we went through when I was like 20 and my sister was 16, up until that time, life was pretty good. I grew up in church and I mean, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday nights, Tuesday nights was choir practice, revivals, the whole thing. We were there participating and being a part. But that didn't exempt us from the things happening around us. And especially these days in the way that the world is right now, sometimes it can get overwhelming for people and they can just get so discouraged and despondent because we do see a lot of evil that seems to be taking over everywhere we look. And Lord, when is it going to happen that, we can see better? Our job is to keep our lives where we need to be, keep our focus on Him, because a lot of times if we start looking around, that's when we get our focus off of Him. And so keep that focus on Him, keep trusting Him, and know that in the end, it will work out, but just don't let it get you down and don't get discouraged while you're waiting for the answer.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think too many people focus on the bad things that are happening that they have no control over, right? So
Yeah.
if we
Mhm.
focus on our sphere of influence and what we can control, then we can keep a better attitude and gratitude.
Yes, exactly. And it's not always easy to do when everything's coming at you from all different directions. I haven't watched the news since January 2021. I said, forget it. I get the little news app break things on my phone. And, if it's something that sounds like I might want to know about it, I'll click on it, start reading. Sometimes I just quit reading right there because we can be so overwhelmed and inundated that that's all that gets on our mind. And then we don't have room for the good things of God.
Exactly. One of the most intense parts of your story involves false accusations against your father and how your family was treated by your church community. How did that
Yes.
experience challenge your faith?
Oh, it definitely did. Being just 20 years old and my sister at 16, we could have just walked away from God and the church altogether. But thankfully, our parents had given us a solid foundation in the Lord, and we knew that we had to trust God. We knew that it wasn't God that was doing this to us. He was allowing it for whatever reason, maybe for today, all these years later, so that I could write this book. Um, at that time, that was never something that would have entered my mind. But we had to keep that focus on God and know that it was God that we had to trust, not man, because even the best of people can fail. And they do fail a lot of times. We've seen through the years how, a lot of people within the gospel world have fallen. And a lot of times Christians put people on such a high pedestal that they can never really truly live up to those standards. But when we put that faith and trust in God, it may be a day to day challenge, it may be an hour to hour challenge. I can remember, even though it was so many years ago, that we would go places and sometimes it wasn't even a church associated event. And I would look around the room and I would just think, gosh, if these people knew what we were going through, would they even sit with me? Would they talk to me? And it was extremely challenging when my husband and I got married, which was like 9 years after this entire fiasco. I didn't put my wedding announcement in the paper because his dad had not given his heart to Christ. His mom was a believer, but I didn't trust those people to not try to contact my husband's father to tell him. And so even almost a decade later, I didn't get to do something that is a once in a lifetime thing and share about my wedding. So it affected me in even different ways other than, the huge ways. I trust people, but I'm very cautious with trusting people. I listen very carefully to how they say things, not just the words, but the intonations of their voice, their face, and I make sure that I get to know someone very well before I totally trust them, just because I learned that you can't always trust everyone, sadly to say, even in the Christian community. So it definitely changed my outlook on life. But I also think that had I not gone through that with my son's health diagnosis, I think my trust would have been more difficult then because I knew at that time if God brought our family through that, he could bring my family through this. So it's kind of interesting when you think about it that that actually propelled me to trusting God more in another situation.
Yeah. I believe that trials and tribulations come for a reason, and we have to find the blessing or the gift in every trial or tribulation that we encounter because it's there, right? So we're going through these things to make us stronger or more focused or to have a different attitude or to have a different perspective.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the Bible says it's a few days and full of trouble. I mean, it's going to be there for us in one way or another. And it is very challenging sometimes to look at it in that way and try to find that silver lining. But there's always a silver lining. And then when we know Christ as our Savior, we can turn it over to Him and be able to give that huge burden that we have and it not downtrodden us so badly that we just want to stay in bed or not, face the world.
Yeah. What did trusting God actually look like for you in that season? Not just in words, but in daily life.
I think probably, and like I say, it's been a long time ago. So, but I do remember um, getting together with friends and thinking, do I share with them what's been happening? Do they know? Has someone contacted them? Because when this took place, it was less than a year later that our music ministry began. And some of the churches had heard about it, and some of them wouldn't have us because they didn't know. Interestingly, we were one of 8 groups in the local area who began an event every July in one of the parks. And it was a 3-day event, had different stages, youth, Southern Gospel, Bluegrass Gospel, contemporary, and churches were involved with their booths as vendors and things. And the one year in those 3 days, it drew like 17,000 people, and it was all free to attend. And one of the adult individuals involved in this situation would come about 10 minutes before we were due to take the stage and walk into the park and just stand there and look. Never say a word to anyone, not talk to anyone in the crowd. And when we would walk off stage, he would leave. And this happened 4 or 5 years in a row. And so, to this day, and I just learned he passed in August of 2025. I don't know if he was coming with the intent to try to make trouble or if he was trying to see what God was doing with our family. I don't know. But we just did what we were supposed to do. And, so I remember situations like that were a little bit intimidating. And yet again, it's just like, God, you got to get us through this. I don't know why he's here. And then he just leave. So it was a challenge even years later when we had met some people, and there was one of my friends in the church that I hadn't seen in 30 plus years. And we reconnected on Facebook, and then we started getting together. with her and her husband and kids, and my husband and my kids, and my mom and dad, and my sister and her husband and daughter. So we kind of reconnected that all. And I remember she told me, she said, I'm so sorry. She said, I was, 19, 20. I didn't know what to do because some of the people who involved in the hurt were family. And she said, I wanted so badly to call you, and yet I didn't. Please forgive me. And so God has brought some of those people in our way. The pastor who was very involved in the hurt said to my dad at an event, someone passed away and we were all there at the viewing. And he looked at him and he said, Brother Brock, he said, I wish I had done things differently. Now he never said I'm sorry, but my dad said, well, I do too. And he felt that was his way of apologizing, which I thought was really good of my dad to look at it in that way. Um, so there have been instances like there are still a few people that we run into every now and then, but very few that will not speak. And I'm like, well, Lord, that's on them. I have learned through the years that if I haven't said or done anything to hurt anyone to cause that, I do not own it. That's
Mhm.
on that person. And so that's something that I learned out of that situation as well.
Well, and I think forgiveness is a powerful tool in our toolbox, right? Like if we
Yes,
forgive somebody, then it's off of us, right? And
right.
you feel better about yourself because you forgave that person, whether they were
Mhm.
apologetic or not.
Right, exactly. And, I've heard people say that when you don't forgive someone, you're putting more harm on yourself than you are that individual. And I believe that is so true. So, it's up to God then to deal with those people. And one day, some of them may come around. I hope they do. It would be nice to know that they've come to the realization that they had to discover. But until that day, I can honestly say there's no animosity or unforgiveness to any of those people that were involved. And when we would find out some of them were going through situations and health scares and passed away, I was praying for them and their families. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And God can always give you what you need in order to be able to do that.
Exactly. For someone listening right now who feels hurt or betrayed by the church, what would you say to them?
Don't look at the church itself because we are the church and we are imperfect people. So look to God. God will never, ever fail you. He will always be there for you. People will fail you, and it can be difficult to know who to trust, but ask the Lord to let you know. Ask Him for that discernment and that wisdom. I think those are the two things that are really lacking in the church as a whole. Um, you know, and God wants to give that to us. He wants us to be wise. The Bible says we should be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. Serpent is very wise. He managed to get Eve to, question God. And that's still the same tactic he's using today. So if someone has been hurt by church members or church organization, he's using that same tactic, getting you to question God. Well, you know, I trusted. Why should I continue trusting God? Because God is not the one who caused the hurt. Sin, living in a fallen world, is what caused that hurt. So keep that focus on God and take everything to Him. Nothing is too small for Him.
Agreed. Your story shows the tension between trusting God and dealing with human pain. How did you personally process forgiveness in that situation?
It was, well, part of it, I think, for my sister and me is that our mom was the last really to have forgiveness in her heart. And of course, it was her husband that was accused falsely. So that would be tough. But I think that part of it for us was that we knew we had to be strong for mom and kind of coax her along and help her in that. And then that was also helping us be strong for our dad. So part of it may not have been so much mentally with us thinking about forgiving for ourselves, but yet showing that forgiveness so that our mom could see that. And it there were days that were more tough than others. Sometimes we would see them. I talk a little section in the book about one time when we happened to be at a viewing of a mutual friend, and all these people were sitting along the back wall of the funeral home. And mom walked over here, and my dad and my sister and I walked right to them and God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, all the way down the line. And they were like, because they couldn't believe we were shaking hands with them and saying, God bless you. And when we got done and got to mom, she's like, I can't believe you guys did that. And it's like, they don't need to be blessed, you know. But doing that actually helped because I've heard people say, do something even if you don't feel it, because if you do it, then you will feel it. And I can guarantee you that is a prime example of that truth. I honestly didn't really feel like shaking their hands and telling them, God bless you. It's like, yeah, you know. But once I did, I felt this release. And so I think the forgiveness was slow in all those little type of events. It wasn't just I woke up one morning and I had forgiven them. It was slow, but each step along the way came easier. And so I think in the society in which we live, everything is so microwave, everything is so instantaneous. You know, we want this and we can't wait for that. And sometimes it's going to take a process. Our son with his epilepsy, I have seen progress in his healing. It wasn't intentionally overnight, but I have seen where God has brought him in his situation, and it's been a progression. So sometimes we just have to be patient, which is probably not a strong suit for most people, and just wait on God because he will bring about what needs to happen at the right time. We just got to be patient and wait on that.
Yes, I can definitely agree with that. I am not a patient person, but I have had to be very patient for months and months. And yes, God's timing is not the same as ours for sure.
Right. No, no, it's not. It's not, but it's always on time.
Yes. Was there a moment where you felt a shift from pain to peace? If you can tell me about that.
Yeah. As time went on, I think, the percentage of the pain versus the percentage of the peace started shifting. And I don't know if there was ever a specific time that all of a sudden I thought, oh, I'm okay with this. Because when I wrote this book, a lot of that intense um, feeling that I had, I was like, oh my gosh, did we really go through that? Did we really survive all that? And when I got done with that chapter, chapter 6, I actually took a break for a day or two from the book because I just had to process all of that. And I read it to my mom a couple weeks before she passed. I was able to read the first, 10 or 12 chapters to her. And when I read that chapter to her and I got done with it, I said, did I do okay? Because she was involved in that. And she said, oh, yeah, you did. And she said, but there's something you forgot a couple things about. And I'm like, okay, what did I forget? And she told me, and I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. But the things that I had forgotten about were things more to her healing that she received because she received phone calls from people saying, God told me to call you because you're becoming bitter and you don't need to do that. And so she related those things to me and I said, I'll go back and I'll add that, which I did. And so when I was going through all that, then I thought, wow, there's a lot probably I did forget about. And I probably could have written the whole book on that one situation, in fact. But again, it was a way that each of us were able to process it because she remembered things more that affected her, and I remembered things more that affected me. So, but it was intense to go back and kind of relive that. And yet I know my husband asked me, he said, well, now that you've written the book, is there anything that you wish you hadn't gone through? And I thought for a minute and I said, well, humanly, yeah. I said, but spiritually, it's made me the person I am today.
Right.
And so I said, I guess spiritually, no. And when I said that, there was just something that hit me. And I thought, oh my gosh, there was purpose. And that's the thing. There's always purpose. We just need to try to find the purpose in each thing that we face, knowing that God will use it for what it's meant to be and give us more purpose in life and share with others as well.
Exactly. How did these experiences shape the woman you are today?
Um, definitely I am not as quick to trust people 100%. I wait, I listen, I watch. I am trusting, but sometimes I'm thinking, okay, is there an ulterior motive here? Even on Facebook, which of course there are a lot of ulterior motives on Facebook. I'm member of a few writers pages, and I'll see someone say, drop your book title here. First thing I do is I click on that name and I go to their profile to see who they are. I do it when I buy something on Marketplace. So that has really transcended throughout my entire life, making sure that I have all the information that I can about that individual to know if I should trust that person. And so, like on some of the pages on Facebook, I'll see that they have like a publishing company or they're a book cover designer. I'm thinking, oh, well, that's their motive. And it's ingrained in me, I guess, from that situation. And part of me wishes that I didn't do that. And yet the other part of me says, well, maybe that's some wisdom and discernment that God has given me because we can't mistrust everyone, but there are a lot of people out there these days that we can't totally trust. And so I do think that wisdom and discernment that he's given me, I can usually meet someone the first time. And whether it's at an event, a Christian event, or anywhere, and sometimes at events, I'd look at my sister and I'd say, are you getting a red flag? Mm-hmm. I'm going, okay. And I won't always know what that red flag means, but I just get this red flag. I just get a check in my spirit saying, don't trust that person totally. I'll be cordial, I'll be kind, I won't treat anyone badly, but I just take a step back and wait on God. And every single one of these has always later proven what that red flag was. So that shows me that I may not be able to trust everyone, but I can most definitely trust God in every situation of my life.
Right. Yeah, I think that we all give off an energy, right? And like some
Hmm.
of us can detect those energies and determine if they're positive or negative or evil or,
Hmm.
good, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. And there are some people that are just like, and I've had some of those people and they're just praising these people. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, do I say anything? No, just back off. I won't. I have been in situations where the Lord has told me certain things like about people that I didn't even know, but that were connected to friends of mine that maybe they're friends. And and I was just like, oh, what do I do with this? And the Lord will always say, just wait. And so I just keep praying and praying and praying. And if it doesn't go away, I continue praying. there was one instance where someone I had known more than 40 years, and the Lord said, "This isn't good." And so I privately messaged her. I wasn't going to do anything on Facebook. That's not right. And I said, "This is what God's put in my spirit, and I just feel I need to share it with you." She ended up unfriending me and blocking me. And then about 2 years ago, she came back and apologized and said, "I don't know what it was that you felt, but I am so sorry for the way that I treated you because that was not right. You were just being kind to me and sharing, and I'm sorry for that." So, had I gone at her, attacking her, that would have never taken place. But again, we have to wait and just be patient on God, and He'll take care of the situations again with trusting Him.
Right. You started Thoughts and Expressions to publish your book. What inspired you to turn your message into a business?
The fact that I didn't know who to trust in the publishing industry, quite honestly, because there are just so many out there, and everyone, is going to turn you into a millionaire and all this stuff. And having been in the gospel music industry for 40 years, I learned that it's not always as easy as everyone can sometimes make it sound. And so I thought, maybe I just need to start my own publishing company. And in the state of Ohio, I could start an LLC for $99. And I thought, that's a fairly inexpensive price for peace.
Right.
So then I thought, okay, now what do I call it? And so I came up with Thoughts and Expressions, because that's what a book is about. It's your thoughts and expressions of your feelings and everything. And so I haven't as yet, but I am open to helping others with editing and proofreading and typesetting and all of the things, because in my book, the only thing I didn't do was write the foreword. My pastor wrote that. I did the cover design. I did all the editing. I did the uploading. I did all of that publishing. So it was a learning experience because there are certain industry standards that I had no idea about. So I had to go back in and change a few things to match that. But all of the technical aspects of writing and publishing the book, I did. So I now have that behind me so that I can help others who maybe were like me and go, what do I do? Where do I turn? So I'm in the process of formulating more of that on my website. My web designer just got married about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So, he's kind of been busy the last few weeks. But I want to be able to offer services to people at a reasonable rate, because it can get so expensive to publish a book. And I don't have a huge overhead. It's me in my home. So I figured what I would do is do 50% off of the standard rate. So that way I'm making some money for my time that I can then put back into my business and into my books, and still give people a wonderful opportunity to save some money. So I'm very excited about where the future is going to go with that as well.
That's amazing. And that'll be helpful for a lot of people. I think a
Yes.
lot of people don't write books because one, they don't know the process or they don't know who to turn to, and two, that they can't really afford it, right? Even self-publishing companies
Mhm.
are very expensive.
Yes, yes, they are. And, I'm learning a lot out there, and I do a lot of advertising, just word of mouth and on my Facebook page and things like that. And, I have a Canva account where I can design a lot of flyers and things. And even though that seems easy for me, for some people, that can be rather daunting. So I can offer those services as well and help them in the post-publishing process.
So I have a question because this is fairly new even to me. Have you seen like videos of book trailers? Like you make a video of like about the book or whatever. So I didn't know if that was something you
Yes.
would offer with your services.
I have not offered that. I am very green on videos, but there is a company associated with Amazon that reached out to me, and they want to do a video trailer of my book, and their price is extremely reasonable. So I'm going to be going with them in the next month or two. I told them, I said, I'm doing a pay as I go process with with my book and with my company because there's so much out there that you can do. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in debt. And I don't want to do that. I managed to pay for my book fully without dipping into our home money or anything like that. I did it all myself. So that's the process I'm doing. And so I'm hoping within a month or two that I will have a video trailer about my book. And I think it's good too. I officially published the book October of last year. March of this year, I offered the ebook. So now in a couple months, I'll have a video trailer. I'm planning an audio book to do. So that way it's keeping something new out in front of the public a little at a time and kind of spreading it out rather than just throwing it all out at once.
Yeah, that's good. What would you say to someone who has a story inside them but feels unqualified or unsure about writing a book?
Write it. I never had this on my bucket list. It was never something I would have expected. Um, and the cool thing is, there's a guy at my church who has had a book that he started writing 12 years ago and he didn't finish it because he didn't feel qualified. He's now going back and rewriting that book. And I thought, he said, "You've inspired me." And I'm like, "Yay," and his is going to be just very traumatic of the person that he grew up being to where he is now. And it's going to be a book that I'm sure a lot of people will just really need to read and realize that God brought him through that situation and they can be brought through theirs. So write it. And then if it's something that needs shifting here and there, even when I started writing my book, I let my husband read the first few chapters and I asked him, I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I enjoyed it." And he said, "It was easy to read and everything." He said, "But it kind of jumped around a little bit in the way you had the chapters laid out." And this was like 6 or 7 chapters. And I went, "You're right." And I flipped just a couple chapters and moved some stuff, and then it was fine. So write it down, get it to someone who can then help you in that and move forward from there because there are people who do offer those services. And I was writing it just as it was coming to me. And then I had to kind of make it into more of a flowing story.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I had
write it.
beta readers, 5 beta readers read my book after I wrote it, and then they made suggestions before I even sent it to the editor. So,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So there are things out there that people can do. And it's great with technology that you don't have to know someone personally to see, that come to fruition. But yeah,
right,
write it, write it. Don't let it be something that goes with you to the grave. People need to know people's stories.
exactly. How has your definition of victory changed over the years?
Oh, well, I think that growing up, I tended to see victories as big things. Something, I remember growing up because uh I was in church all my life, gave my heart to the Lord when I was 8 years old. So at 8 years old, I didn't have a mess of big list of sins or anything like that to say, "Here, God." Yet I still needed him. And so all of us have some type of a testimony. And my testimony may not be that I came from drugs and alcohol and abuse and all of this, where some others have that story. But every one of us can look back and see those victories. And sometimes they're small victories. Sometimes for people who are alcoholics, it may be, "I've got a victory of 1 year clean."
Mhm.
And maybe they have 30 years before that of alcoholism. So that 1 year looks very tiny compared to that huge 30-year time slot, but it's still a victory. And so I've had to learn to look at the small victories, the day-to-day victories, not worried about the big picture at the end. When my husband and I got married, I was the type of person that if I couldn't finish something, I wouldn't start it. And one day he said, "Donna, how do you eat an elephant?" And I was like, "What?" He said, "How do you eat an elephant?" I was like, "Well, I don't." And he's like, one bite at a time.
Right.
And that really changed so much in my life because now it's like, okay, I have this, and I'm a list person. So I have all these things to do. And when I get one of them done, I check it off. If it's as much as clean the stove, I check it off. And I feel then like I'm accomplishing something. And so small victories add up to that big victory. So we need to realize it's not just the big things that can bring us victory, but it's those small victories as well.
I agree. I'm a list person as well. I love checking things off my list. But what I also do is I say 3 wins every day because then it's like, small steps like, okay, I did this today, or I accomplished this today, or, this was my win for the day, right? Because it's something positive to infuse into your
Yes.
day to make it better. And I also
Yes.
journal. So,
Mm,
and that's very helpful as well to kind of be
right.
introspective about your day and what happened, and how to think differently about things. So,
Yes, yeah, very different. Yeah, and because when we write things, we're seeing it.
right.
And so we're not just thinking about it, but we've written it down and we're viewing it. And so then we are able to internalize that in another way. And that does really help.
Exactly. That's all the questions I had for you today. Did you have anything else to
Okay.
add before we close out for the day?
Well, I am just thrilled that I had this opportunity and I just I did not write this book to become a millionaire, number one. I wrote it to help people. And I just hope and pray that whoever reads this book will be able to internally take this in and let it affect their life because God will always, always be there for us. And it may not be an easy road, it may be a journey. It's been a journey for me, and I'm still on that journey. But when we're moving forward, instead of standing still, that's where God wants us to be. So just, you know, soak it up, let the Lord lead you and guide you, and trust Him in all things.
Agreed. Donna, thank you so much for sharing your story with such honesty
Thank
and strength.
you.
I appreciate you. Your journey is a
Thank you.
powerful reminder that even in life's most painful and confusing moments, there is purpose and there is God who never leaves us. If
Yes.
you've been listening today and you're walking through a difficult season, I hope this conversation encouraged you to hold on, lean in, and trust, even when it's hard. You can grab Donna Strong's book, Trust, Total Reliance Under Stressful Times, using the link in the show notes, and connect with her through thoughts and expressions if you're looking to bring your own story to life. And if you're an author or aspiring author or entrepreneur who wants to turn your message into something meaningful and impactful, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Author Entrepreneur Collective. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it, and I'll see you in the next episode.